So it's mailroom time again. We made it through Christmas, and I've got the coolest things from all over. I mean, Bulgaria and Greece and the East Coast and the West Coast and old friends and new friends, and I am, once again, dazzled. So let me lead off with this. You ever seen anything like that? I hadn't either. This is a Tesla. It's a hammer that has been popular for a long time prior to power tools in Eastern Europe, according to a new friend, Antony Radovanov, who is an engineer and an architect working out of Sofia, Bulgaria, and doing work in the United States through the magic of the internet. So Antony, I've never seen or touched or imagined a Tesla. That's as foreign to me as something out of Japan, right? Another planet. And if I walked onto a job where the guys were handling these, I would know that I had a lot to learn, but I'm going to look for a chance to use this thing and find out what it felt like, old school, Eastern Europe, building something with a hammer that looks like that. So the next item showed up, I don't know, last week of November, and it's from my good friend Peter Orr. He's got a great sense of humor. Vacaville, California. Now if that name's familiar, it's because Peter's the man who gave me this platen table. We put the video up of that last summer, and I am getting acquainted with this beautiful thing. I've been using it, working on these two little prototypes of railing brackets, and I'm going to be using it a lot on the railing itself when I start that in the spec house here over the next month or so. But once again, Peter, who has established himself as a major supporter of the channel, has surprised and made me grateful. Thanks a lot, Peter. So this next item is from Paul in California. So Paul had or has a neighbor who was a retired chemist and gave Paul, he says, cases of these boiling flasks, 500 milliliter Pyrex boiling flasks, because Paul was sure that he could make vases of some kind with them. And sure enough, he has. He sent us an email with pictures of other designs. Is that cool? I mean, art meets craft meets science, right? I mean, then that thing can't get out of there. He says that he burned, oh yes, P.E. Bailey, keep up the good work. Amen, brother. That's a beautiful thing. The wood is mesquite, the dowels, I'm not sure. That's, I think, standard dowel material. I'm not sure what it is. It mattereth not. That's a beautiful thing, and that's going to hold flowers as soon as they show up in the spring. Thanks, Paul. So this next item is a print, number 96 of a print run of 300. The original was painted by Eldon Olin, who has become well known in the Pacific Northwest for the artwork he did that faithfully represents not just the actuality of logging in the Pacific Northwest in the 1940s and 50s and 60s and 70s, but the feeling, the atmosphere, the conflict between the men and the lumber and the lumbering and the danger, and he captured it. So this was sent to me by his grandson, Blake. Now, there's a world of interest in this short letter, but to boil it down, Blake's dad was paralyzed and couldn't teach him the core things of manhood himself with his hands because he was paralyzed. But he tried to explain it as best he could, said Blake. And that resonated with me for a couple of reasons, but I get notes from you guys, from some number of comments in the below the videos, people lamenting the fact that their dad was unable or unwilling to teach them the things that dads just simply have to teach. And I don't know how to respond to that. But I appreciate so much what Blake has taken a chance in sending me for that reason, because now I appreciate better what my dad modeled with his hands. But this is entitled Roy's Tired. Blake's granddad painted this from a photograph after this young man had been killed in the woods. Think of that. So this was painted, and it meant a lot to the family of Roy. And it means a lot to me because my dad worked in the woods for probably 10 years before he went to work in a mill. And I can remember my 6-year-old self running up to where the Crummy, which is the vehicle that Dad would go to work in, would stop on the highway and drop him off, and he'd walk back to the house, and he looked exactly like that. Same pants, same shirt, same socks, same moccasins, all of it. And So anyhow, Blake, thank you. This, I guess accidentally, is a home run for the Wadsworths, and I can see that your granddad made a profound contribution to remembering and memorializing and helping a lot of people appreciate the reality of a logger's life when the woods were what fueled and drove and made prosperous the Pacific Northwest. Eldon's widow and one of his daughters are still marketing and sending out to the world prints and paintings, giclées, and whatever it is that's left from the work that Eldon did. So if you're interested in that, eldonolan.com. You can go to the notes under this video and see how you could get a hold of some of this really iconic and high quality art that would represent for you or anyone else that came into your home what the woods were like when I was a kid. This is the second item we've received from Thessalonica in Greece, and both of them came from Christos. Now the first one was similar to this, only smaller and less sort of sophisticated. But Christos does all of it. He does the electronics, he does the cutting, he does the fitting, he does the lights, I don't know. Christos makes magic happen. And let me tell you, the first one he sent was a smash hit. And I can vouch for the fact that it will work for at least 12 months, 365 days, 24 hours a day, because my wife plugged it in and never shut it off. And now this one's going to be going right alongside of it. She loves these things. Christos, thank you very much. And to the rest of you, if this looks like something that you would like to have twinkling away in the corner of a room, all of his contact information and his social media sort of footprint will be in the notes underneath this video. And he's everywhere. He's got lots of ways you can get in touch with him, and he's got just a unique idea, and I love the way that he sort of lightens and makes spontaneous Christmas. Thank you, Christos. So this little package comes to me from James McClellan in Woodstock, Georgia. But it actually originated in New Zealand. A friend of James sent that to him in order to forward it to me, because there are people who are true believers that metric is better, and they have a lot of good reasons. And he says that pure metric tapes are scarcer in the United States than the proverbial hen's teeth, and he thinks I ought to have one. And man, I appreciate it, guys. I mean, that speaks to a lot of incentive to get your hands on a tape in New Zealand and send it to Georgia, and then from Georgia to box it up and send it out to Oregon. Thank you very much, and this makes my eyes cross. Where's the 16-inch layout? Okay, but the fact is, and I think I can admit this, that in a lot of ways, metric is handier. I won't even try to argue against that. But what I will tell you is my eye has become somewhat calibrated in the imperial system. I can visualize pretty close what 11/16 looks like. And I don't know how long it would take me to begin to think of in terms of, what is that? 50, 10, 12, maybe 13 millimeters? Yeah, I would say 13 millimeters would be real close to 11/16. I don't know. If somebody called out, hey, would you hand me a 2x4 that's, I don't know, 765, or let's make that more reasonable, about 39 millimeters or 40 millimeters or 60 millimeters or 25 millimeters, man, I would have to get the tape out. But that's a smooth operating machine, and I will spend some time with that next to my easy chair, letting that soak in to see if 300 and 400 and 500 can begin to have the significance that 16 and 21 and 25 have to me now. And if I live long enough, maybe I will eventually get some facility with the metric system. I have no doubt that eventually it's going to be the law of the land as everything else changes. But in the meantime, thank you very much. I at least have a go-to tool for learning these things, uncontaminated by any English measurements whatsoever. Thanks, Jim. Okay, we're whittling this down and we're almost home. And I would just really like to say thank you to Mr. Melling. He sent me a couple of cards which we will sign, honorary Port Authority Retired Police Association cards for Nate and I, and some support. Thank you very much for that. Thanks for your kind words. Russ and Julie Cherry. Russ is the traveling handyman. He travels around with his wife, who's a traveling nurse, and he gets a chance to see the whole country, and she has the the job of helping to take care of people in a dangerous time. So thank you for that, Julie, and thank you for the support, Russ. He pointed out that he wanted to be a participant in giving away anvils, and we will certainly think of you in those terms, so thank you very much. A book, a very intriguing book from Christina and Ryan Norton in East Peoria, Illinois, Craft, an Inquiry into the Origins and True Meaning of Traditional Crafts, on the must-read list. There's a local friend of mine, I've known him for 15 years. He worked at Garrison's Building Supply, now he works at Colorcraft Paint. Ketty Blumenthal is teamed up with a fellow named Jeff, and they have a YouTube channel called The Unity Gain Show, and it's about rock and roll guitar and how to play it. And they're doing a good job. So anyway, thanks Ketty, thanks Jeff. Keep up that kind of good work, will ya? And then the last thing is from my friend Mr. Mansfield, who runs a welding trade program in Massachusetts. He continues to send us proof of his students' achievement, and this time he sent us the Jocko Willink book, Discipline Equals Freedom, the Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual, Jocko Willink. Lots of pearls of wisdom in there. Thank you, Mr. Mansfield. And to all of you who have been patient with this video, I want to let you know that you're watching, you're commenting, you're setting aside time and interest and outreach to your friends to tell them about what we're doing here. Means a lot to us. Makes it possible to keep going. I've recently had 2 tools show up sent to me by viewers that I didn't know existed, and frankly I wish that I would have known existed at various times in the past. The first of them is this skate plate. Now, what the advertising, what the pamphlet that came with it says, I think is in fact the truth. It gives a do-it-yourselfer the capacity to make professional quality rips. Now, having said that, if I would have had this gizmo when I was cutting the treads and the faces for my stairs, it would have saved me some time. Check this out. You're essentially bolting your worm drive or sidewinder, if you order it for a sidewinder, set screws, set screw, to a little plate that's a skateboard, a very low profile skateboard that your saw goes on. You only lose about 1/4 of an inch of depth of cut, and if you keep the roller bearings on the side of this gauge in contact with your work, you're going to get a beautiful rip every time. I can see the benefit. Now, I don't know how often I would use this, but there would be moments, if I could anticipate them and make sure it was in the truck, when I would be really glad that I had it. Item number 2 I haven't used yet, but I can tell you for sure I'm going to be using it in the kitchen. True Position Tools. And this is a jig, a very beautifully machined and I think user-friendly jig for drilling holes into the front of cabinet doors and drawers. You can see that it's got the capacity to adjust these 2 drill bit guides, so you can drill a, what is that, 3/16, whatever size hole is, into a drawer front or onto the edge of a cabinet door, exactly the same every single time, with just a complete range of variability. I mean, you can move the fence up there, and you can change the setting on this one, and I'm not even sure how in the world there's a whole nother appliance here for attaching somewhere to some effect, and I'm going to know a lot better once we get the pulls installed on the drawers and the doors in this kitchen and in the vanities in the bathrooms, exactly how this works. But I can tell you just by looking at it that once I understand it, it's going to give you the ability to repeat perfectly whole layout from door to door to door to drawer to drawer to drawer without worrying about wrecking the front of an expensive cabinet by a poorly placed hole. So unlike the skate plate, this is a tool for pros. If you're a do-it-yourselfer and you've got to put the pulls on 5 or 6 cabinet doors or on an entertainment center you built, just build yourself a jig or lay out the holes and drill it. But if you've got hundreds of these things to do week in and week out, it looks to me like this is going to be something that I'll be able to tell you in a couple of months when my kitchen is done was money well spent. Just in case you've just found us and you're wondering exactly what's going on right here, I'm sitting in the garage of a house that we've built specifically to show you all of the steps involved in building a wood-framed house in the western United States. We've got a series that's got a lot of videos. It will answer a lot of your questions. It demonstrates every step from site selection and soil compaction and concrete mix designs right up through installing the hardware on your cabinets, and every other aspect of building a house like this. I want to thank both of these people that sent me these tools. It was nice of you to do that, and I appreciate it very much. I'm looking forward to using them. And in general, thanks to all of you, and there are a lot of you, who have become supporters of the channel in various ways. It means a lot, and it's making it possible for us to continue to do this. Thank you for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.